Hello, I'm Jonathan Bowman-Perks and welcome back to my favourite time of the week. And I'm very fortunate to have a good old friend of mine, General Tim Evans. And we're going to be talking about Tim's experience and inspiring leaders. So Tim, just give us a little capsule of career and where you're now.
So I was in the military for 34 years and I've been retired now for 3 years. And it started when I was back at 17. So I left public school and they had a no-type engagement where the army says you'll be a soldier for 6 months on a gentleman's agreement that if you don't pass your officer's exams or RCB, they don't keep you in the military. Mm-hmm. But for me, fascinating insight. So from public school into a Nissen hut in Shrewsbury with 30 lads from the north, and I there speaking with 5 plums in my mouth, and they wondered who I was. But actually, I learned very quickly that they might not have qualifications, but they are streetwise. They know who bluffs, who doesn't. You earn their respect. And also I learned there the power of the junior NCO, the corporal, which sometimes as you go up the ranks you might forget. But literally then, how high I would jump, whatever they said, in the sense of the power they hold, but the camaraderie they built. So that was a very good learning. That was 17. Yeah. And then really, when I came back to battalion as a second lieutenant, I think again a formative moment was when my first operation in Belfast. And that gave me the flavour of what operations meant. The camaraderie, mission first, how everyone's orientated to the purpose. And I think really that sowed the seed almost for my career, because I thought maybe in time I might try for Special Forces, which I did later, didn't get through the first time, second, but that would put me then to Hereford or to SAS and on. And then from that, it was probably a trajectory that took me through command and operational and training jobs, which I think for myself is why I stayed in so long, because every day was different, every day was a challenge, and it's just something that I felt invigorated. It's a vocation, it really is. Yeah. And therefore it took me through to battalion, to brigade, to a corps, and then eventually I had to leave. Yeah. But I had a fascinating time.
Well, I think of various people that I've spoken to, and they all, like me, probably think of you as one of the most inspiring, but also yet the most modest about what you've achieved. You know, you're also the commander of the ARRC, the Allied Rapid Reaction Corps, and also Commandant of Sandhurst, and we can talk more about that in the second extra session after this. But when you look back over your career, there must have been people who were quite role models to you and who inspired you. And who would you perhaps, a couple of people you'd pick out?
I was thinking about that, and if I said 4, my father for one, and even just as a child, he gave me the ability to spread my wings. We weren't boxed in, so that's great. So I learned about freedom and trust. Then even at school, as my housemaster, Julian Billiere, who I'm still a friend with now, he kind of mentored me even at 14. Small as I am, I could either be D crew rower or I'd be the first 8 cocks. And so he took me out and I read some of the old books. That Cox has hit the bank again. And so I don't know how they had as a young 14-year-old, why they put up with me. But I then was dealing with the 18-year-olds of the school and I learned a lot just of how it works. And he almost shepherded me through that. And I think it meant that I was then, in his sense, under his wing and learnt so much. So that was at school and putting me then to the forces. And then when I was ADC to General de Billiere, the most decorated general, Special Forces, again, very humble. He could, though, talk to the Queen, or he could very comfortable talking to a soldier. He almost espoused mission command, delegate, but he kept his finger on the pulse. But he would trust you. So again, I learned some good lessons there about you don't have to be all over it. Let them have their way, but just trust that it's enough. And are you satisfied? If you are, let them go, even with some mistakes, because then they'll rise, the confidence grows, and suddenly the team is doing more than you would expect because you let them have their leash. I thought, wow. And then last one I'd say is probably General Sir Richard Sharef. He was my divisional commander in Basra, and I might mention that later, one of the harder tours I've done, where again, strength of personality, protected, I knew he had my back. He was up and out, I was down and in with the brigade, and it was resolute. Where people might doubt, or people might try and go for pause, he knew what in a sense was good for soldiers, and he was true. And I thought, again, I learned some good lessons off Sir Richard about how it works in operations. So no one person, but seriously, as you go through life, you look and see and think there's almost traits or areas where you think, gosh, that is quite special. And then perhaps just draw. But I don't think you should change, because I think you are inherently who you are. But I think you can learn. And therefore you colour. So I would advocate in leadership, don't try and be someone else. Be yourself. And as Slim said, leadership is playing you. but I think you can learn and shape yourselves as how you might want to do it for the future by looking around you and see where people are.
That's very wise. And someone said to me, everybody you meet has something to teach you. If only you would listen.
Oh.
And sometimes it's learning about how not to be. I won't be like that guy.
Yep.
Or that woman. But I think like you, I suppose particularly with losing my father, I was looking for male role models and learning from them, but still trying to be myself. And when I acted and tried to be them, it never worked.
No.
Never worked. No.
And people see through it.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep a facade up.
No.
And therefore don't.
No.
And I think for youngsters, and particularly at Sandhurst, and we'd said it at Sandhurst, as Commandant Sandhurst, be yourself, but do learn, because there's certain traits that you might want to shape, because it might not be about self. And I think for me, and we'll talk about this later, mission, team, self. And I think the biggest thing from Sandhurst and others is just making sure today's society is turning that about, so therefore they understand that it's not about them. Mission, team, self, funny old thing, it works. Stronger for the team, and you yourself are better off for it, because the team's there. Yeah. So it's not a difficult recipe, but I think it's just that someone's got to understand what it is, and that way then it makes life so much easier, because it's focused. Now, you can't always do that, and therefore something's come at a price, because if you're mission focused, something's got to give. Yeah.
We'll talk about that further later. And you've had lots of experiences, great successes, but also you must have learned as a leader from your mistakes. What would be one of your learnings from your mistakes, and how's that shaped the leader you are today?
A couple of things, I think. If there's a trait, I think sometimes trust your gut instinct, and if something doesn't quite smell right, or you get a feeling, follow it through. Whereas sometimes you perhaps don't. Wishful thinking, or perhaps it will get better, and bad news doesn't get better with time. And I've learned, almost to my expense, of why didn't I grip it earlier? I kind of knew it. And we all know anything that I should have done. Yeah. It just nips something, and you can take it down. Whereas when it's got bigger and bigger, you think, and that's back to you. And you almost think, is that your own leadership? Perhaps you should have been stronger, or more thoughtful, or don't hear other things. So for me as a trade, I think almost act on your gut, or even if it's not gut, if it doesn't smell right, it's not right, get into it. The other side, just more personal, I think. When I was a battalion commander, we had a training accident. A guy died, very good person. And then obviously with all the investigation going through, and the people who had to be investigated just to check what it was, and they were exonerated. Personally, I don't think I gave as much support as I could or should have done. And to this day, if I had rerun that, I would have done. Because I think I probably hadn't quite appreciated what the pressure it is when something like that is over your head, even though there was no answer for it, sad as it was. I probably didn't respect the fact that what it is, and as a commander, that's my responsibility. And so I wish I had.
That's
been more supportive.
Wise words. And Tim, finally, what would be your top tip? I mean, we're going to have some more tips later on, but what would be your top tip to leaders who are listening about being a more inspiring leader, whatever level they're at?
Can I have two?
You can have two.
And everyone will almost say what these are. The first one is lead by example. Life is so much easier if you set the bar and set it high, because then you can always bring it down. But if you set a low bar, everyone judges you on that bar. Very hard to bring it up. But if you set the bar fairly high and try and live through it, both in your business, personal life and others, then people will follow you. You can be quite robust. You can be quite hard. But then you're consistent, you're fair, and that's your standard.
That's very good.
And therefore, if you're doing it, they have to follow. If you're not doing it, how can you look someone in the eye and say, I want this? And they're looking at you thinking, but you don't follow that creed. So my first one would be lead by example.
Second?
The second one is don't expect anyone else to do anything that you wouldn't do yourself. But we all know in the forces you can't do everything. You can't be the best sniper on the other side. But the soldiers or NCOs know that you would do it or could do it if you had to. They will do extraordinary things with that because they're not out on a limb. They don't think they're being abused. They don't think they're just part. And I think if you do those two things, life is a little bit easier, because if you do that, then the team comes together.
Brilliant. Tim, thank you.
No,
it's been
pleasure.
Fantastic spending time with you. Really appreciate that. And I know everyone will value your advice and your experience. Thank you.
Pleasure.